Net Zero Business, Part 2, Major Corporates. Don't be the bad guy of the business world. The three major contributors to carbon emissions are food and drink, manufacturing, transport, freight, and aviation. Let's go and talk about little reminder of what carbon footprint is. Measuring the impact that any activity has on the environment. It refers to amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere by that activity. Let's look at an example, a simple bottle of water that innocently we drink and consume millions or billions of it a day. It goes through a very complex stages of processing involving machinery, transport, and use of energy. And you can imagine each one leaving a carbon footprint. So the process of that is how it happens. You go and search the source, you come and store it temporarily through a little filtration goes and it goes through a demineral, microbes and etc. It goes there, then again goes through processing. There are several stages. In a minute we will see that it goes through. It's a very complex process, just that simple bottled water that we are drinking. It goes through several inspections. Manufacturing inspections, sanitary facilities inspections, quality standards, labeling standards, quality of production controls and processes. And the state will regulate and inspect. They got to travel to those places. They need to process information through computers, etc. All that covers footprint. And then it must meet industry standards. Imagine the carbon footprint. By the time you get to you, that innocent bottle of water that we hold goes through a very complicated, complex process that each one leaves its footprint. Need to find out either it comes from reservoirs or natural sources. They need to be explored, they need to be excavated, they need to be tunneled, they need to be made safe, etc. Machinery used. The equipment that you use is for filtration, for deodorizing, for purification. Again, every step, carbon footprint. So it makes sense to quit the bottle. There are good reasons to stop drinking bottled water. It's no better than tap. Several studies in several different countries shown that bottled water is no better than the tap water of the most countries that we are using. Particularly in Britain, the tap water is as healthy as any water. There is plastics and chemicals and non-biodegradable items, contents are there. It's very environmentally friendly. We have seen TV programs that what the plastic does, and majority of those plastics are bottled water plastic that we see on the seas and seashores. It's a very unnecessary expense because you have it in the as tap at home, at office, anywhere you go. And you will add to the pollution by using the bottled water. So why not quit that bottle and get yourself proper refillable water that can take you anywhere, you can have it, fill it in anywhere. We're going to talk about next carbon footprint of the food industry because they make more than a third of the global total of carbon emissions. You can see every bit of it. Every one of these leaves carbon footprint. Every one of these activities, emissions are involved. The shocking thing is that we throw away over 7 billion tons of food every year, and 70% of that is waste. 5 million tons of it is just waste. And that is good food that we don't eat or could not have been eaten because we overpurchased, etc. Overcooked. The food waste is associated with 40 billions of tons of CO2. To reduce your eating leftover has a major impact on cutting the carbon. And more importantly, saves you money. And the Soil Association says if the soils are healthy, they are capable of storing carbon. If we go organic, at least 1.3 billion tons of carbon would be taken by the soil every year. And also not to buy fruit and vegetables that have too many miles. But the issue is not clear cut. We have a lot of do's and don'ts, but not practical, often not practical. And the worst culprit is regarded to be Peruvian asparagus because it comes by air. And food processing is very complex. Imagine every step. Cut your carbon footprint. Take practical steps to do that. Don't overfill your kettle. Just boil as much as you need. Avoid plastic packaging. Stop eating meat or cut it. Lower your wonky fruit and vegetables. Consider your cooking methods. Shop local and shop things when they are in season. Eat organic. And rethink your food miles. See where they come from. Majority of things we buy, they have labels. So that is the ways to cut your carbon footprint. Later on, we're going to explore a bit more of how to do it on a personal level and how to do it in business level. Part 3 is about how to cut carbon footprint more effectively and efficiently, and explaining to you exactly how to do all of this. Next culprit is manufacturing. Manufacturing is another third. And out of the whole world, Europe has more manufacturing carbon footprint or carbon emissions, which adds up to 880 million tons of carbon. And this makes manufacturing one of the largest single emitters of greenhouse gases in Europe. In USA, that accounts to 22% of emissions. Manufacturing is 22%. In the States, electric is 20% and transportation is 29%. What are the key steps in reducing manufacturing carbon? Create climate positive culture. When you develop your business plans and have your actions and operations, make sure you factor in climate activities and instill a belief, a culture that we need to care for. Raise your staff awareness. Be ecology conscious. Purchase from climate friendly suppliers. Integrate climate actions everywhere. So that way, those little positive steps helps to, in the long run, create a better, more conscious workforce. The next one is carbon footprint of the fashion industry. Next biggie. From lifestyle of the clothing that we wear, to transportation, to us wearing, etc. And a huge amount of what we got, it ends up in landfill. And 1.2 billion tons of carbons released by fashion industry every year. There's some statistics for you to have a look. Around 70% of fashion industry's emissions came from upstream activities. Like, what are those upstream? Material production and preparation and processing. And the remaining 30% is downstream, which is retail operations and end of use activities. How to reduce your fashion carbon footprint? Buy from climate conscious brands. Purchase fashions that is locally made. Look for certified organic fabrics. Buy less, buy better, that it lasts. Wear more of what you got. Embrace the air dry rather than machine dry. Choose cold cycle washing rather than top heat. Judge when it needs washing, not just out of habit as soon as you take it off, wash it. Sometimes it can be reworn. When you let clothes go, avoid landfill. Make sure it's recycled. It also makes sense to use and buy recycled or second-hand ones. They're doing a great job. Visit them. And the next one is carbon footprint of car manufacturing. We said Europe produces more of the carbon emission, and at the top of that carbon emission is the car industry in Europe. Average passenger 4.5 metric tons of carbon dioxide every year. And they also require extraction of raw materials, steel, aluminium, plastic, rubber, and then the processing of those. It's all energy intensive, all requires machinery, all requires processing. The processing of raw materials for auto manufacturing is extremely energy intensive. A manufacturing of a new car requires exactly the same amount of energy that it uses in its life cycle. The carbon footprint of electric car is the same as the standard normal car, but overall, in the long run, uses half of the energy of the traditional. Then you can save around £5,000 by driving an electric car. So how to reduce the carbon footprint of the manufacturing? Invest in quality machine parts that they last. Consider the equipments that are less energy required. Use multitasking equipments. Do different activities at the same time. Plan better. Maintain your equipments. When they are maintained properly, inspected properly, they are in good working order, they're likely to use less energy. Also, they're likely to be more efficient. Prevent energy wasting leaks. Embed sustainability into the supply chain. Become conscious of that and look for carbon-friendly kite marks. It reduces standing by and idling times of machines, equipment, vehicles, etc. The next culprit is transportation, freight, and aviation. They account for 27% of UK's total emissions, almost a third. The domestic transport, the day-to-day car that we use, emits 122 metric carbon emission. and there has been little changes. International aviation emission is doubled in UK. In 2018, 34% of nitrogen oxide emissions and 13% of particulate matter came from that aviation transport. So steps to reduce transport and aviation carbon footprint: fly more efficient aircrafts, use new technologies, use sustainable lower carbon alternative eco-fuels, invest in emission offsets, plan the journeys better, and take journeys with full freight capacity. That is part 2. In part 3, we're going to talk about ways to reduce carbon footprint.